Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's SRDS.com Media Pro webinar, brought to you by Kantar Media SRDS. Today's session is How to Find and Evaluate Digital Media, Networks and Tech. And I'll note that today's session on networks and tech is the first in a multi-part series, and that next month we will cover researching websites for direct-to-publisher planning. But today is going to focus on networks and tech. Now, we know that your time is extremely precious, so we've only scheduled half an hour today. So in order to keep things moving, we do ask that everyone mute your phone lines, and we're planning to do our best to accommodate some time for questions before our time is up. So please hold any questions that you have until the end. Rest assured that we will send out a link later today with the recording from today's session. So if you're registered and you're listening and you can hear me right now, send you the video to replay or share with your colleagues. And you'll also be able to find the link when you sign in to SRDS.com later in the week. Okay? So without that out of the way, welcome again. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started. My name is Mike Morrow. I'm the Content and Online Marketing Director for Kantar Media SRDS. And I'm joined today by our corporate trainer, who many of you probably already know, Tina Stevens. In just a few minutes, Tina is going to show us exactly how to find, consider, and better understand some of these digital networks and tech companies using your SRDS.com subscription, and she's going to lay out a couple of real-world examples that some of our SRDS clients have recently shared with Tina. Now, before we do that, however, I know that many of the folks on today's call are not necessarily digital media experts. So I wanted to give some brief context about the kinds of digital partners that we're going to be talking about today. And when I say that some of us on the call are not necessarily digital experts, it's hard to say you can blame them. In general, we believe that despite its tremendous growth and popularity, the digital advertising ecosystem is just plain too confusing. If you don't live in it every day, trying to track down RTB, DSPs, ASAP for your client can sometimes feel like you're swimming in alphabet soup. Making it even more difficult to keep up is a near constant proliferation and consolidation of ad technologies, platforms, and companies. Have you ever gotten a message from someone at a potential partner, they leave a voicemail, you go on to go check out their website to learn more about them before you return their call, and then click away from their website not being able to understand what the heck they actually do? Well, let's just say that sometimes it can be a challenge to break past the jargon and the marketing speak to find out just what these vendors can do for your clients. And I say this as a marketer. Now, don't get me wrong, these companies and technologies are amazing, but they're not often run by mortals like you and I, and sometimes it seems like you require a computer science degree just to understand what's going on. That's why we like to say that media planners shouldn't need to be digital wizards to keep up with what's happening in digital media. And at the very least, we should all have a reliable place to find the basics of who's who and how to compare available options. Now, when we look at our most basic level, we all know that digital advertising isn't that different than traditional media. On the one side, we have advertisers who have a demand to reach the audiences that are supplied and represented by the publishers and media brands on the other side. Now, usually those advertisers are working with experts at an agency to do so. As you can see in the middle of this chart, digital has brought with it a host of other players geared at using technology to make sure that everyone involved in the transaction gets the most bang for the buck and the most efficient advertising buys. Tina is going to show you how to evaluate these companies, but I'm going to start with some very basic definitions of what kind of networks and tech partners we're going to be talking about today. And I will note you'll see a URL at the bottom of the screen, and all of these terms and definitions are available at that URL. Tina's going to show you how to access it from within SRDS.com, but if you get lost, feel free to visit that URL at any time and you can get some kind of down-to-earth explanations about digital networks, digital tech, and digital advertising. So working from the inside of this chart outward, let's start by defining just who the networks are. Like their counterparts in local media, digital networks exist in between the buyers and sellers of digital media. They aggregate the ad space from publishers and help segment the audiences to sell impressions. Networks allow us to coordinate more efficient campaigns across many different sites at once and give us access to inventory across many publishers with much less effort than buying direct. And if the stars align, at lower rates. Now, digital exchanges, on the other hand, are technology platforms that help to automate the real-time auction of these impressions between multiple advertisers and selling those to the highest-paying advertiser bidder. Exchanges can allow for unheard-of efficiency, much less expensive inventory, and the ability to purchase some very specific audiences in very close to real time, though they sometimes have been viewed as being more complicated to navigate for non-specialists. That complexity spawned the need for what we call DSPs, demand-side platforms. These are technology platforms that allow digital media buyers and marketers to manage several ad exchanges, ad networks, and data through one centralized user interface. Imagine inputting specific demographic parameters, click or impression goals into a DSP, and then having that DSP identify ad opportunities across multiple networks, finding the best prices for the most views in your target demographic, and then possibly automatically executing those buys on your behalf. On the other side of the equation are the supply-side platforms, the SSPs. These are technology platforms that are used by the web publishers to outsource media selling and ad network management services. Many of the large web publishers that you may be dealing with are using an SSP to automate and optimize the selling of their digital media inventory. And of course, this is really meant to protect them from price dilution as more agencies and brands are increasingly allocating their ad spend using automated processes like the DSPs and the ad networks and exchanges. So bringing it all together, in short, a web publisher can engage with an SSP, which interfaces to an ad exchange that aggregates multiple networks of sites, which interfaces with a DSP used by the trading desk or planners on the agency and advertiser side. Phew. Of course, to make things even more complicated, many of the companies that you'll find and that will call upon you offer one or more of all of these capabilities and services. So what do? That's a very basic grounding in some of the kinds of companies that you might want to learn more about as you're exploring online campaigns. But beyond the basics, how do we find out more about the specific companies? How do we pit them against each other to find out which the best options are to look into further for our clients and our campaigns? We could go to a consumer tool like Google, I suppose, and spend a ton of time filtering through the hundreds of thousands of relevant results. Ad exchanger articles, tech-based entries on the different companies, and see what you find. Or, now granted, I'm a little biased, but I think you could do better by using a database specifically built to make navigating this ecosystem simpler for media planners and buyers. Of course, I'm talking about SRDS.com from Kantar Media, and I'm going to hand the mic over now to Tina, who's going to show you a little bit more detail about how you can find these companies and evaluate them within the SRDS online database. So Tina, handing over to you.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you all for your time today. I'm excited to be here to share with you how SRDS.com and the new Digital Networks and Tech database can help you cut through the chaos and confusion of the digital ad tech space. Back in October, SRDS launched Digital Networks and Tech. This is a unique resource with detailed information on more than 170 ad tech providers. Listing information includes platforms, formats, services and specialties, among other data points for you to consider and compare, evaluate, and understand each of these options. Plus, all the information is continuously updated. With nearly all U.S. networks and tech companies located in one place, we make it easy for you to find options to consider, but then we arm you with the information that you need to confidently recommend services to your client. Regardless of where you are in this space, you're going to find value within this resource. If you're an expert, you can come here to see what we have to say about the big guys you know about, but then also learn about companies you may not be as familiar with. If you're an expert in training, you can come here to broaden that base of knowledge, but also use it to look up those companies that are contacting you for meetings to see whether or not they're worth your time. And newbies, you can come here to start building that base of knowledge through the information that Mike referenced in our digital terminology link. The digital terminology link is located on the lower left-hand side of your screen underneath the filtering options. Digital terminology provides easy to understand definitions on every term in this resource. So whether you're having a hard time keeping all that alphabet soup that Mike mentioned earlier straight, or you want to learn more about the different ad formats and cost structures, digital terminology will help you find what you need. Finding companies to consider is equally as easy in digital networks and tech. There are two ways for you to search. The first way is using your filtering options along the left-hand side of your screen. Just like the other SRDS databases, select from your filtering categories to bring up those companies that meet your criteria. Filtering saves you time by focusing your energies on looking at only those companies that do what you need them to do. So maybe you're looking for a network, so under services we're going to select network. And maybe you want that network to accept the mobile platform, so under platforms I'm going to select mobile. And maybe you're also interested in working with a Comscore Top 20 network, since you know that Comscore measures the highest visited sites and you want someone who has access to those types of sites. You can see with just a few clicks, we now have a manageable list of companies that meet our criteria to start reviewing. The other way to search in this resource is by using the open search. The open search is located on the toolbar, and it functions pretty much like most standard search engines. So enter any keywords or phrases to find listings that have that mentioned in them for you to consider. Or again, use this to enter the names of those companies that are requesting meetings with you to pull up their listing and see if they're worth your time. So we know how to find the companies to consider. How do we go about making sense of them all? Well, you probably noticed that our results load in the center of the screen, and they come up in what's called the grid view format. The grid view is nice because it drops your results into a table format, and then it top lines a few key capabilities for you to quickly compare each of the options. If you want a little bit more to go on before you dive deep into the listing to really understand what differentiates each of these companies, just switch over to the list view. The list view is more of a snapshot overview, and it provides a little bit more detail for you to consider before you spend time in the full listing profile. When you're ready to view the full listing profile, just click on the company name, and it'll load in the center of the screen for you. You're going to notice that the listing profile looks and feels just like the other listings in SRDS. All of the information is tabbed out for you. All of the tabs are really pretty self-explanatory and make getting to the information that you need quick and easy. We always start you on that general information tab to get you familiar with who this company is and what they have to offer. In some cases, you'll see a positioning statement. This is the company owner's opportunity to speak directly to you in their own words about their capabilities and why you should consider working with them. Every listing will have a listing profile, and that's an objective summary written by the in-house SRDS digital experts. It's a summary overview of the company's capabilities and what they have to offer. You'll be able to link off to the company website to gather even more information to help you as you evaluate this option, including viewing any testimonials they may have posted. Services that they offer will be listed, as well as specialties, and then additional data points that are going to vary from listing to listing. Those data points include reach, which is percentage of U.S. reach across a handful of platforms. As you can see here, any targeting options they may offer, as well as site selection options, including blacklisting and cherry picking. So you can see just from this first tab of information alone why you're going to be spending so much time in these listings to really understand what each company has to offer and what differentiates them. As we continue to move down the tabs, the next tab is contacts, and it is what it says it is. These are the phone, fax, email contacts of individuals at this company who'd be able to answer your questions about how to work with them. Next is platforms and formats, and this quickly spells out what they accept and what they don't. Similarly, the rates tab is going to show you cost structures accepted, those that aren't accepted, as well as any policy information the company may have shared. In some cases, you'll see this network overview tab. This is something else that the company owner can pay to include in their listing, like that positioning statement. And it's really their opportunity to lay it all out there for you and make sure that you have the information that you need, that they think you need, to really understand everything they have to offer. You're also going to see some duplicate links to those more information icons across the top of the listing. And those more information icons are exactly what they say they are. It's more information for you to understand everything that this company has to offer. The arrow tells you that they have third-party research. This is typically the kind of research you'd find in a media kit. The three arrows tells you that they have reach information to share. The star tells you they have additional opportunities they want you to be aware of. And then any social media presence that they may have, you can link off to those social media sites as well. In many instances, you'll also see a tab for sites served on. This is even more insight for you to take advantage of. And what it provides you with is a list of sites that this company has served within the last 90 days. So it's insight not only into the types of sites that they have to offer, but also the quality of those sites as well. Plus, there's the additional functionality of being able to further narrow by classification or market, or if you want to know more about the site, click on the site name to load that listing from SRDS as well. So you can see how much detail is available to you in these listings, and it makes sense why you're going to spend the bulk of your time in the listing profiles. So we've been through how to bring up companies to consider. We've looked at how to compare these options, whether in the quick comparison grid view, the snapshot overview list view, or diving deep into the full listing profile to really understand the differentiators within each of the companies. Let's pull it all together and see if we can make it work using a couple of examples. In our first example, our client has seen a dip in their TV effectiveness. They've come to you and asked you to look into finding digital networks that offer connected TV to see if that will supplement. How do you go about finding these companies to consider? Well, first you want to make sure you're logged into SRDS.com, and then you want to make sure you're in the digital networks and tech database like we are. And at this point, we're just going to start filtering because we have criteria to do that with. We know that we're looking for a network, so we'll select network under services. And we know that we want that network to accept the connected TV platform, so we're going to select that as well. And this client, I happen to know, also places a high level of importance on site transparency. So I'm also going to select the IAB certification under designations, since I know IAB certified sellers must meet site transparency requirements among other criteria in order to receive that certification. So now I'm covering and making sure that everything that's important to my client and everything that they are asking for from me is covered in my criteria. I've got a manageable consideration set in front of me to start reviewing, but what's great is at this point, regardless of how you move forward, you know that you have all the information that you need to understand and evaluate these options, to confidently return to your client and make recommendations that will help them meet their objectives. So that's example one. Let's look at another example, which is not quite as detailed. In this case, the client has just sort of casually mentioned that they're thinking about maybe being interested in pursuing or looking into retargeting of prospects from their website. So you don't really have a lot to go on at this point. However, you can certainly start the process. And in this case, what I would do is I would use the open search and type in the keyword of retargeting. What that's going to do is it's going to bring up every listing that mentions retargeting in it. And so when my results load, you'll notice I've got 73 companies that meet that criteria. So there are 73 companies that mention retargeting somewhere in their listing. I can certainly start getting familiar with these companies, but as more information becomes available through conversations with your client or directives from your client, you can come back here, do the same search, and then further narrow based on that information as it comes in using the filtering categories on the left. So maybe the next conversation is, oh yeah, we want to try the video format. So do your retargeting open search, and then further narrow by video format. So this is a great example because it shows you how you can start really broad, but then further narrow as things change and as directives change from your client. So we've thrown a lot out at you today. How do you stay in the know? How do you stay connected? How do you make sure you make the most of this and your other SRDS access? Well, the first thing that you can do is make sure that you're registered. And if you haven't registered, it's easy to do. Just go to next.srds.com, enter your work email address in the center of the screen to begin that process. Once your password has been created and accepted, you can come back here and go to the upper right-hand corner to log in and start taking advantage of all of the services your company or agency subscribes to. Plus, being registered means that you'll receive regular updates from us about what's going on at SRDS.com, as well as what's going on in the industry. Additionally, you can make sure that you visit our blog with some regularity. The blog is going to offer up not only tips from me and my colleagues, but also insights from other industry professionals to keep you up to speed on what's going on in the industry. So, your heads are all spinning, I'm sure, but I'm sure there are some questions that may have come in while I've been speaking. And as Mike mentioned, we will go ahead and try and answer as many questions as we can in the time remaining. So Mike, did anything come in that you want me to address?
Yes, thanks, Tina. Taking a look here, we do have a couple of minutes. So if you do have another question, please go ahead and submit it through the WebEx chat to the meeting host. I'm trying to kind of pull these together and consolidate. One question, Tina, that I know we've heard in the past, and I did see come through this afternoon, is around how often does this data actually change, and how often do you update the SRDS database?
Well, that's a good question, and that is a question that we receive regularly. And just like all of the other SRDS databases, the information in the digital networks and tech resource is also updated continuously. This is something that we at SRDS and our data team does proactively. We reach out to all of the listings on a regular basis, and as those updates come in, they're updated continuously. In addition to that, however, the listees can also proactively reach out to us as things change as well. So as you imagine, with so many reach outs and so many different venues to get this updated information, it's changing with a lot of regularity. Plus, this space just changes frequently as well. So yet another reason to make sure you're checking the online resource regularly to see what changes. Anything else?
Yeah, here's a good one, Tina, is how do you have information about the sites served by an ad network?
And that's a good question as well. Kantar Media SRDS uses a proprietary technology to detect the network or ad tech company that served an ad unit on a website during a given time period. What we currently list in that Site Served On tab are the sites that they've had an ad served by the listed vendor as detected by our technology in the last 90 days.
Great. I see a question came in about how much does it cost to subscribe to the Digital Networks and Tech database. It's $875 for a single user for unlimited access to a year. It's $1,750, I believe, that also includes access to the SRDS.com website database.
Yes, and I would encourage folks to, if you're in contact with your SRDS rep on a regular basis, to reach out to them as well, and they'd be able to not only, do an overview with you, but also really make sure that you have the access that you need.
Okay, let's see. Here's another one. Where can I get more information about how recently IAB or Comscore were applied to the vendor?
That's actually a very good question, and that actually came up in a review I did just last week because IAB recently made some updates. We are in communication with our data team to find out when those are going to be applied to the site. So that's something that with the follow-up emails I will try and provide to you guys, but we are in regular communication with these other resources such as IAB. Comscore changes regularly too, just because of how frequently the sites that they measure change. So that's a regular update as well.
Okay. How do I go about finding what the best digital platform would work for my client using SRDS?
Well, that is really, SRDS is a discovery tool. It's a tool that you can use to identify options, but you know your client way better than we do. So you need to apply what you know about your client to the options that you are reviewing to make the best decision for that client based on the information in front of you.
Great. Let's see if we have time for one more, maybe two more, we'll see. How specific does the information regarding geo-targeting get? Simply that it is available, or does it include their full reporting capabilities, zip, country, DMA, etc.?
And that's a good question too. I need to get back to you on that. My initial response is that we report whether or not it's available. I don't think we get down to the granular level of the zip, etc. However, let me confirm that for you, and that will be something, again, in that follow-up email that I'll respond to.
Okay, one more. Are there any other digital media trainings available?
Well, all of you guys, for those of you who don't know me, I'm always happy to set up time to walk any of our users, our existing users or potential users through our resources. And you can access my calendar through the website, so feel free to either email me directly. My email is tina.stevens@kantarmedia.com, or from the website, just link off to the Contact Us tab, and my training calendar link is there as well. I offer open sessions 3 times a week, but again, if there's something specific that you're interested in seeing, reach out to me and I'll set up a one-on-one time to do that. So that's it. I'm going to turn it back to Mike to sort of wrap things up.
Sure.
Today.
Yeah. Thank you, Tina, and thank you everyone for your questions and for your attendance this afternoon. That is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I mentioned earlier that we will send out a link with the recording and materials later this afternoon or this evening, but always do feel free to reach out to your SRDS rep, to the service center at the contact information on your screen, or directly to Tina or myself with any questions or feedback. Thanks everybody, and have a great afternoon.